Two readings this morning, both from the Sermon on the Mount, starting with the beatitudes that we've been thinking about over the last few weeks. Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And then moving on to verse 38 of chapter 5 of Matthew. "You have heard that it was said, 'Eye for eye and tooth for tooth.' But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbour and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning. Who loves a quiz? And I love the way that you got amen into the letters there as well. I mean, come on, that's pretty impressive. Although I won't spoil anything for those who haven't yet seen it. But I expect some of us love a quiz, don't we? Not just Dave. And I expect that for some of us, we love that challenge of, do we know the right answer? Because a quiz is often about getting the right answer. I mean, David Tisdett did a quiz a few weeks ago where I think the questions just seemed a little bit easier for the children than the adults. I mean, and I expect some of us don't like quizzes. We're worried that we might not give the right answer. Perhaps it brings back memories of sitting an exam, because exams are about, or often are about, getting the right answer. And I know that for some of you, a subject like maths is especially challenging. There's that fear of not being able to answer the question, to get the right answer. If you're wondering, it is actually B, 10 plus 3 pi. You can see me afterwards if you want an explanation. I mean, I expect for others, you love maths because you like getting the right answer to a question. A few months ago, I did a little trick with a dice in a metal container. You may have been here. And the trick only worked if I could say what face was upwards without seeing the dice being put into the container. It worked if I could get the right number. Lots of things in life seem to be about getting things right. And today we're looking at that verse from the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. We have this word righteousness. What does righteousness mean, though? And one website said the quality of being found right. I'm not sure that helps us very much. So I went to the Oxford English Dictionary. The Oxford English Dictionary says the quality of being morally right. Perhaps that gets us a little bit closer, but is this what is meant here? And the word righteousness, if you were listening, came up a number of times in the passage that was read. It's used 6 times in chapters 5 and 6 of Matthew's Gospel in this Sermon on the Mount. So it's an important word. The writer, John Stott, states there are several aspects to righteousness. Righteousness is about having a character and conduct which pleases God. If you like, what we're like and what we do. A righteousness of heart, mind, and motive. But let's be careful. We could make a mistake. We could withdraw from the world to seek a righteous life. But biblical righteousness is more than a private and personal affair. Righteousness also includes social righteousness. And social righteousness, as we learn from the law and the prophets of the Old Testament, is concerned with justice. It's about seeking liberation from oppression. It's about the promotion of civil rights. It's about integrity in how we deal with and relate to others. In the playground, in the office, at home with our family. And the best way to catch on to Jesus' meaning of righteousness is to look at what he says next and the examples he uses to explain righteousness. Jesus talks about justice and the idea of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I think we all have this desire for justice and fairness. Often a complaint I heard at school was pupils saying, "That's not fair." You may have said this as a child. You may have said this as an adult. We don't like it when we get punished, but others get away with it. When someone does something wrong, we want justice to be done. We want someone to pay for the wrong that they've done. Punishment somehow feels right and fair. And then we read this passage from Matthew. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And at first reading, it seems that Jesus is saying we need to roll over and just accept wrong things that are done to us. We need to turn the other cheek to allow someone to slap us again. So let's look at this idea of an eye for an eye. This was an Old Testament concept. Exodus 21 tells us, if there's a serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. So the idea is centered around the idea of reciprocal justice. If you do something to someone, you should have that thing done to you. And in Hebrew law, it was designed to keep the punishment in proportion so that you couldn't excessively punish someone for something they've done. Jesus says, you've heard it said, you know, this eye for an eye, this reciprocal justice thing, I interpret this in a different way. I tell you, do not resist an evil person. And when I think of not resisting an evil person, I assume it means don't stop them. Let them do whatever they want. But did you notice what that verse says? If anyone slaps you on the right cheek. That word right is important. Sarah, my wife, spent 6 months in India when she was younger. And that was a bit of a struggle because she is left-handed. Sarah, why was that a challenge?
Well, this was rural India, where there was a definite culture of what you did with your left hand and what you did with your right hand, and it was to do with cleanliness, so there was a reason behind it. But it meant that if you were left-handed, and naturally that was your dominant hand, you might easily go into a shop and give the person some money with your left hand, and that was actually considered to be really very, very rude and disrespectful to that person. So you had to make sure you used the correct hand for the correct thing that you were doing.
Okay, so at this time in Jewish culture, similarly, you used your right and left hands for different things. The right hand was seen as clean, and the left hand as unclean. You didn't use your left hand to slap someone. I can't slap my wife, can I?
Thank you, Alan.
Okay. Who could I slap? Andy, you haven't been up the front for a while. Oh, come on, Andy. You've got a lot of sympathy there. Okay. I mean, a blow by my right hand will land on Andy's left cheek. Oh, not his right cheek, his left cheek. I mean, whether I use a fist or an open-handed slap, that's going to hit his left cheek. To slap his right cheek with an open hand would require using my left hand. But in that society, could I use my left hand? No. It's used for unclean things. The only way I can slap Andy's right cheek with my right hand is to use the back of the hand. Shall I? Oh, some people said yes. So, there we have it. So we're not dealing with a fist fight here. No, not yet. No, we just had that one. But with insult. The Jewish audience to which Jesus is talking to would understand that. Me using my right hand to give a backhanded slap on Andy's right cheek is designed to humiliate him. The intention is not to injure, but to humiliate, to put someone in their place. The sort of kind of slap that might be used to show who was boss, to remind everyone who's in charge. The point of the back of the hand was to reinforce inequality. So why does Jesus say to turn the other cheek? Because that action robs me of the ability to humiliate Andy. Andy, turn your left cheek. I now have a problem. I can't give a backhanded slap on Andy's left cheek. I don't want to use my left hand because that's unclean. And I don't want to turn it into a fight because it's not a fight. It's designed to humiliate. And therefore, the person who turns the other cheek is saying, in effect, try again. Your first slap failed to achieve its intended efforts. I won't slap you. You can go and sit down. Thank you. What a great job. So what that person is saying, I refuse to be humiliated by you. I'm a human being just like you. And such a response would create enormous difficulties for the striker. So in turning the other cheek, what this person is doing is not giving permission for this humiliation to continue, but demanding that they're treated as equal, proving that they have this higher worth and value that is currently being shown. The person doing the slapping has lost the ability to humiliate, to instill shame. Jesus then talks about a shirt and a coat. In Jesus' time, if someone owed you money, you could take their long outer robe as a pledge that the money would be paid back. Deuteronomy 24 says, when you make a loan of any kind to your neighbor, do not go into their house to get what is offered to you as a pledge. Stay outside and let the neighbor to whom you are making the loan bring the pledge out to you. If the neighbor is poor, do not go to sleep with their pledge in your possession. Return their cloak by sunset, so that your neighbor may sleep in it. Then they will thank you, and it will be regarded as a righteous act in the sight of the Lord your God. So why is Jesus encouraging someone to give their shirt and coat? Andy, you've got a coat. You've got a shirt. I think I want your shirt. I mean, you owe me something. Come and give me. Yep.
Might as well have my coat then.
Might as well, yeah. I mean, make sure you pay that loan, won't it? And let's just think about it in the first century. I'm not sure you'd be wearing trousers. Perhaps we won't go that far. I don't think we really want... Oh, do we want to see a naked Andy?
No. Who said yes?
There were a few people who do. It would definitely make a more memorable service, wouldn't it? Naked Andy, but... Not a... Anyhow, well, thank you for that. We'll let you go back. So what is Jesus saying here? Yet again, we need to understand Jewish culture at the time. Nakedness, but it's a bit like now, was a taboo. But the shame fell more on the person viewing or causing the nakedness, and not really on the person who was naked. So if I make Andy naked, the shame is on me for making him naked, not on him. You might want to read the story about Noah becoming drunk, going to sleep naked, and being discovered by his sons. It's in Genesis 9 if you want to read it later, but we won't go there now. So imagine this kind of thing happening in public. This wealthy person making someone else naked. And when that person realizes that his actions in leaving the poor person naked, he's going to see a naked person. The tables have suddenly been turned. The poor person has brought shame on the wealthy person. The poor man has risen above the attempts to humiliate him. And finally, in that bit of Matthew 5, we have this extra mile. In Roman military law, a soldier could command a person to carry their pack, probably heavy military gear, for a mile. This was just part of life in Palestine at that time. Whoever was found on the street, Andy, you're on the street. Oh, I've brought my pack. Oh. It needs to be carried, I think. Could you come and carry it for the next mile for me? This practice is relatively enlightened because you can only go for 1 mile. It's limited for 1 mile. And any further than that would cause problems. So off you go and carry that for me for 1 mile. Well done. Any further than the mile, and then the soldier would break the law. And then they could be subject to floggings or fines or even worse. So imagine that when this person comes back after a mile, or gone on after a mile, he reaches to get his pack, and that person's carrying on. Give me back my pack. I'm going to get into trouble here, aren't I? He's keeping going. I want my pack back. And it sort of becomes humorous because I'm running after him, trying to get my pack back, and he's keeping going. It's meant to be funny here, and the Jewish people listening would have got the humor, but I think we miss it because he's gone on too far, and I didn't want him to do that. Give it back. Oh, no wonder you're no longer up the front. You see, this Roman soldier, he would have been horrified. He's going to be in trouble. He's got to get his pack back. See, the oppressed have once more seized the initiative. They've taken back the power of choice. No, the problem here, one could easily use Jesus' advice vindictively, to use non-violence as a tactic for revenge. And that's why we mustn't separate it from the command to love our enemies that's in the next few verses. I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Culture often gives us 2 options to injustice. Blind submission, just go along with it, or violent resistance. But Jesus gives us this created third option involving neither. And this created third way is how we might choose to respond to injustice. You probably already know that responding to evil with violence is not the right thing. So you may be sitting there thinking, this is all very interesting, but how does this impact us today in the here and now? Let's go back to verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. This is about our character, our conduct, our motives. How do we treat others? And how do we react to others? This is what Jesus was talking about when he gave those 3 examples. Righteousness includes justice. Injustice is often linked to power and how we use power, especially the intentional use of power to harm or put someone down. And we're all human, and we all have the capacity to cause harm to someone else. Perhaps it's in the way we write or we respond to an email or a text message to get back at someone for something that they've said to us. When we leave a nasty or less than pleasant comment on social media. When we say negative things about asylum seekers or migrants. When we exclude someone. When we deliberately leave someone out of a game in the playground. When we deliberately pick someone last. When we deliberately exclude someone in the office. Or even in the church. when we respond to someone pulling out in front of us in the car by tailgating them, when we use our power, our privilege, our influence to control someone else or a group of people, then we are causing injustice. And I think we're all also capable of turning a blind eye to injustice. Desmond Tutu said, "If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." Are we turning a blind eye to injustice when we fail to challenge that sexist or homophobic joke at work or at school? When we continue to purchase things from companies that exploit their workers and don't pay them a fair wage? When we fail to speak out about injustice or actively work for change? The God of love is also the God of justice. The two are related because in the Bible, justice is the social form of love. To take the God of love seriously means to take justice seriously. Righteousness is having a right relationship with God. The Christian life is about a relationship with God that transforms us into more compassionate beings. It's about our character, our conduct, our motives. Do we have a hunger and thirst for righteousness? Do we have a hunger and thirst for justice? If we do, then Jesus says that we will be filled, that we will find satisfaction, that we will truly live. Amen.